Hello, how are you?
Hey, I am doing okay. I just got off of work and I did not get a lot of sleep last night. My son had a choir concert that we went to until what feels to me like the wee hours of the morning. I was in bed by 10:30. But when your alarm goes off at 3:15, that's late. So I am dragging myself to the end of the day, but I am super pumped to be recording with you. So that's giving me artificial energy.
Nice. Well, I am happy to be your artificial stimulant. Glad
Yeah.
I can help out.
Yeah. I think this works out. How are you?
You know, this may be the first time in my life that I can say I am fine, and fine is the perfect answer.
Okay.
Fine means everything is just happening, right? Like it's not up, it's not down, it's just fine.
Mid, as my teenage son would say.
Yeah. And there have been lots of like upswings and downswings, and like my son graduated high school last weekend and all sorts of whatever. And now I've gotten into a week where we're like in a routine, and it's just we've hit a little bit of a normal, and that is beautiful, and I love it. And so I am delighted to say I'm fine.
Okay.
Things are just going along, which is exactly what I want. But what do you got on your mind today?
Well, I wanted to touch base today on the respective, I wouldn't say nature walks, but time in nature that you and I each committed to this last week. I assume you fulfilled your end of the bargain.
I did.
Okay. Okay. This was good. So I really just want to process it. And regardless of whether or not we ever record a podcast about this is how we would talk about it. We would usually say, hey, how was it? Kind of before, beginning, and after. How was the prep? How was the experience? And what are you taking from it? But all of that brings to mind this great cinematic moment from a movie that I know you love.
Ooh.
Do you remember the moment in Hitch when Will Smith's character is trying to hit on Eva Mendez's character in the bar? And he's like, hi, honey, how was the meeting today? In order to get some other guy away from her.
Oh, yeah, he's trying to help her out and get rid of some like sleazy guy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And she looks at him and she goes, it was fine. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end. Goodbye to the other guy, to like the sleazy guy.
Sleazy guy.
And so I would like to hear about your beginning, your middle, and your end. That's what I want to do today.
Oh, first of all, I have to say, yes, you're right. I love Hitch as a movie. It is one of the most important discipleship resources I ever refer to. But everything that's a different episode. Everything I learned about discipleship, I learned from Hitch.
Oh, wow.
But
that's a clickbait title, and we need to grow in that area. We're not very clickbaity. So yeah, keep that one in the back pocket.
I could do a full episode, dude. But anyway, yeah, I think you're exactly right. Let's talk before, during, and after, or beginning, middle, and end. So tell me, I guess, what was your starting point? Like, what was your prep?
My prep. So this came about for me because I looked at my calendar. I had a meeting that got canceled. And when I went to take it off of my calendar, I realized it was the only meeting I had for this past Tuesday. And I went, ooh, are you kidding me? I have a completely blank day where I'm not obligated to be anywhere. And it actually kind of surprised me because I mean, that's just not how life runs for me. And so I was like, I need to capitalize on this. And there's so many ways to capitalize on it, right? I have house projects that I can do. I have finances to work on. I have dishes to wash. Like I just, I could fill the time. There's books I want to read. There's so much. But I was like, no, I need to get into the woods. I really need that. And through a conversation with you, you're like, yeah, I actually need that too. Let's both commit to it. And so I'm like, okay, fine. I'm committed to it. But then there's like a million things that vie for my attention and vie for becoming the highest priority for that day. Like there's a guy that I meet with regularly. I'm tracking his story. It's had all sorts of ups and downs. And he tells me the other day, we had a really big up. Things are like, this is a great high point in the story. I can't wait to share it with you. And I'm like, I can't wait either. Like, let's make this happen. He goes, how's Tuesday? How's Tuesday? I'm like, I really should be spending the day in the woods. That's what I committed to. And he's like, oh gosh, yeah, do that. And I'm like, but I want to hear your story. He's like, well, we'll do it the next Tuesday. So I got to wait like a whole other week to hear like this guy's really great news. But it was all sorts of things. It was like all the things I mentioned about priorities. Like one of our cars needs to get into the shop and like getting that done is super complicated. I was on the way to the woods and my son called and said, the dog just freaked out. I think his leg is messed up. He's limping. He's not well. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know. He just needs to get to the vet, but I'm on the way to the woods like I committed to. And then my daughter's taken the car to the shop and she's calling me. Like I had just gotten to the woods and she's calling me. She's like, Mom's at work and can't answer her phone and I need money to like pay the vet and can you deposit it into my account? And like, I'm telling you, life was pulling me away from the woods at every turn, leading all the way up to this experience. But I did it. I was there and I'm glad I went, but that was my preparation.
Oh man, I cannot tell you how much I resonate with this. I set aside this chunk of time and all I wanted to do, and I could like feel the pull of it in like the best way. Like I was craving this moment. And on both ends, different little things were working to whittle the time down.
Mm.
It was things like my son's car broke down and he needed to get to a thing getting ready for graduation, and then my daughter had a thing, and my wife was not available and nobody could drive her, and so I had to be the person to drive her and pick her up and whatever. Like it got I'll be honest, mine got whittled down a little bit more than I wanted it to. And I
Yeah.
was really disappointed about that, but it was a fight. Uh, it was a fight to keep the stuff out. And I think for me, one of the big things was realizing the default for me was to say, oh, well, I have to do this other thing. I give up. I'm not doing it.
Yes.
Rather than to try to settle for an imperfect amount of time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it was such a temptation to just scrap it. And when life got in the way, what I needed to do was say, it's okay. I can compromise my original plan and still be okay and have a little bit less time in the woods, get my responsibilities done, and know that it's not about this one time. I can use this as a reminder of a thing that matters to me and continually strive to make more opportunities to do this. My life doesn't rise or fall on the success of this one day.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It doesn't rise or fall on the success of that day. However, that statement was nearly enough to derail my whole experience because
Hmm.
I I found it increasingly hard to justify why I was going to go spend a day in the woods. I couldn't give you a full answer other than this is definitely what I need. I know that I as a person need to spend time in nature, and I don't get enough of it. I had a day where I could seize the opportunity, and I should. But then when all of these other things creep up that are worthy things, and I know that my well-being does not ride or die on this one moment, it was really easy to say, well, then I'll just pick another moment. And had
Yeah.
we not committed to this together, I probably would have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same here. 100%.
And then, so to make matters worse, the other layer of difficulty for me was the weather was atrocious. We've had a string of really nice weather out here until about a week ago. And then it turned rainy and not as warm, and it's just not been fun. And I committed to going to a place that is even slightly rainier. Like it's only an hour from my house, but just the way that the weather patterns work around the coastal mountains, it sucks in the weather right above the lake I wanted to go to. So I just took rain gear. I still took my kayak and I still took my hiking boots and I still hiked around the lake in the rain. I enjoyed a brief respite from the rain every now and then, but for the most part, I just got dumped on, both on my kayak and out of it. And by the end of it, I was fairly cold and ready to be done. And I knew going into it that this was also going to be part of my experience, which like gave me another layer of like, am I really committed to this? And why exactly? And should I be doing this?
Totally get it. I did a couple, I guess it was a year ago now. I did a 48-hour retreat with some guys in my area. And it was a full unplug retreat. Phones went off when we got there. There was no electricity. We were in this like lean-to cabin with no power. And it was cold and miserable the entire 48 hours. And I got to be honest, like by the time I was done, I was like, I am so done. Uh, like there was no glorious bird song. There was no
Yeah.
heavenly choir. It was just like, ugh. We did say we were grabbing breakfast at a restaurant on the way back, right? Like, because at least that'll be good. Um, so I totally get that. Like, the weather really is another variable that is completely out of our control.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
and so as I was prepping, one of the verses that came to mind for me, and I'm curious what you think about this. Historically, this verse from Mark chapter 1, where it says, "And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he, Jesus, departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed." Right? Like you've heard that verse, I'm sure, a million times.
Absolutely.
That is normally a make sure you do your daily quiet time verse, right?
Hmm. I think so, but I've attached it far more to these like retreat moments than just daily prayer.
See, okay, so I am then catching up to you. I have felt like this was a go do your time with Jesus every day and make sure you do it in an undistracted way kind of verse. And prepping for this moment, I felt like this was a moment where Jesus was actually taking some kind of retreat, far more than it was him doing his daily quiet time.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Even if that just means it was 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it was in the morning. I don't know what he was going for, and it doesn't really say. And maybe that that wasn't the point. It is fascinating that Jesus also dealt with this tension that we are describing of like things, whether it's people or weather or whatever, sort of getting in the way. Because, of course, this story ends with his disciples hunting him down. Um, and
Right.
so at least we can say that if we are making the effort and our efforts do not result in perfection, we are in the same boat as Jesus. I
Wow.
find that
Yeah.
comforting.
Yeah. So the passage in Mark there doesn't give us a lot of description about what Jesus did. He just went alone to pray. Is that what your experience was like? And are you willing to give more detail than that? Like what when you actually set out and did it, how did the doing go?
Yeah. So I decided to go kayaking. I live near a beautiful lake that is owned by the utility company in my town in Springfield, and it is the reservoir for northern Springfield. And because it is privately owned, there are zero houses on the lake. It is just nature when you are there. And it's
Hmm.
just small enough that there tend to not be a lot of Howard boats. There are some, and that's fine. But there are never like, in a lot of lakes where I've kayaked, there's always going to be like a bunch of people on a party boat zooming around with somebody behind them in a raft that they're like trying to whip off the raft.
Hmm.
This lake is too small for that. And so I wanted to go out on the lake, and I have to be honest, I've been kayaking on this lake a ton of times. I have never gone out without either headphones to listen to something or another person. I've never gone out on the lake by myself in silence. And so
Hmm.
I went out. I have this, my kayak is this, it's really an inflatable paddleboard with a seat. Um, I got my paddleboard out. I went out onto the lake, and what was I trying for? I think that's what you're asking for, right? Like, what was I?
Yeah.
I think I went out with the question, God, where are you? Not in the like stressed out, bitter, beat my chest and scream to the sky kind of way. Far more in the curious, intrigued, yeah, curious, intrigued sort of way. I just was like, God, I'm just wanting to see where you're at and where I can meet you in the midst of all of this. And that was it. It was very, I relate to this sort of, and there he prayed, meaning there wasn't a lot of detail to it.
Hmm.
It just was, I am someone who can, and I said this in a previous episode, I can try so hard in these moments that I work my way into stifling them. And so
Hmm.
I was really trying to go in taking the moment gently. If I just keep my eyes and ears open, if I just look at what's actually happening, if I sit with it, what will I see? What will I hear? What will I experience? And in the middle of all of that, where is Jesus? What
Hmm.
about for you? What were you going in wanting or looking for?
I had a very similar approach. I did not have an overriding question like where God, where are you? I had zero question. And just like you was trying to be very intentional about not being intentional. Like I was intentionally
Exactly.
keeping the slate clean was my intention. Just show up and see what God wanted to do at the time. And so I planned nothing other than to have my Bible available, to have my kayak available and my hiking boots available, and to just be there and see what God wanted to do. So for the first few hours, I was really just getting acquainted with my surroundings and becoming present in that space. I was the only person at the lake for a number of hours. So I hiked all the way around the lake. Then the weather cleared and I got onto my kayak and I went out into the center of the lake and the sun was shining and it was drying me and it felt good. And so I just sat in the center of the lake and let the wind slowly move me toward a shore. And I didn't pray in the traditional sense of that. Like I wasn't saying words to God or trying to intentionally listen. I just was there. And
Mm.
whatever God wanted to do at that time, I honestly, my thoughts were, I'm listening if God wants to speak, but also I know that these first few hours are really important for me to just let my central nervous system calm down and for me to just be present. So I didn't put any pressure on the moment. Eventually, the rain kicked back in right about the time that I was like, well, I could probably eat lunch. So I actually went and ate lunch in my car while it poured down rain for a bit. And by this point, I started getting really curious about the sermon that I'm going to preach. Like, I think we talked about this. I don't know if it was last week or in a previous episode at some point. I'm still working on that sermon, and I was kind of marinating on some of the thoughts around what is wisdom and how does this work. And so I went back and I reread my passage and I just kind of prayerfully thought about it. And then my brain was kind of in sermon crafting mode, but also in like oh yeah, and this, oh, and that. And it was just a really fun, meditative time. I didn't write anything down because I wasn't there to write my sermon, but it was a moment where the sermon could take root in me. And so I'm really excited about the writing process that comes next because I'm ready. And that was a lot of the rest of my day was kind of thinking about wisdom and how to acquire it and thinking about how to preach on that. And then I spent some time intentionally praying for some of the people in my life that I'm tracking their stories and I care what happens next. And I was telling God what I cared about and what I wanted for these people. So, and that was kind of it. That was my time.
Mm. You know, one of the things I love about that is in allowing it to be what it was, you comfortably moved from one thing to another, one
Mm.
sort of activity to another. I think that is an invaluable part of how this works. I think being able to flow with it is just absolutely essential.
Yeah, I could feel that in the moment. And actually, it kind of came to the end. I was done. I was done with the kayaking. I was done with the hiking. There wasn't anything more I wanted to do in that space. And I looked at the clock and I went, I still have like 2 hours left. I didn't intend to leave for another 2 hours. I don't want to pack up early, but I also feel done. And so I just started slowly packing up my kayak and getting it on the car and all of that, tying it down. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, on my way up here, because this is a good ways up a foothill of a mountain, I went, oh, there was some really nice vistas along the road on my way up here that I'd actually like to stop at. So I just packed up and I headed back down the mountain till I got to a place where I could pull off the road safely and enjoy some of those vistas for a while. And I went, oh, yeah, I can just kind of continue to make this up as I go and not be in a hurry. It's okay
Mm,
to flex and do something I hadn't envisioned before I set out for the day. Um, but it was not an easy transition to like realize that that was okay.
yeah, no. I often struggle with that exact same thing. Like that sense of flexibility is so challenging.
So did your experience require any flexibility other than the fact that it was shortened on, on the back end?
You know, I I went with sort of a set of things I was going to do that is very similar to yours. I was open to kayaking, I was open to hiking. There's tons of hiking trails around this lake. It was so kind of whatever. I was really open to sort of just sitting in the middle of the lake, like you mentioned. And I really ended up staying on my kayak the whole time. And that was fine. So essentially, I just never finished with the first thing. Um, and
Yeah.
and that's fairly unusual for me, but I was just really caught by how full, active, and alive the world is when we are unplugged and open to experiencing it. You know,
Yeah.
I sat there for a while and there was this flock of these little birds. I looked up what they were called and after I got off my kayak, but I forget. But they were just beautiful, and it was so fun to watch them play. Like they just were playing. I don't even know another word for it. They were diving and zipping around each other, and they weren't going anywhere, and they weren't trying to accomplish anything that I could tell. And it was fascinating to watch that, and it was fascinating to pause and be still long enough. It was so quite distinct from your experience. The weather the day that I went out was literally perfect. I
Mm.
mean, blue sky, white clouds, the whole thing. And one of the things that I just love to do that shifts my perspective on the universe very gently is to be still enough to watch the clouds actually move. If you stay still, you get to see the fact that the clouds are moving. And normally they just appear to us as if they were stillish because we're moving so much.
Yeah.
And that is both what I need to do internally and what I need to do externally. A big piece of this for me is slowing down. And this is a thing that I've had to really practice and work at for a long time is slowing down the internal monologue. Nothing gets in my way more than just my own internal monologue. And so I really need to take the time to let that, not let that will never stop if I try, but, or if I just let it. But if I proactively keep bringing my attention back to the present moment, what do I see? What do I hear? What am I smelling? It's amazing to me the sounds. There is something breathtaking about the sound of water.
Mm.
And when I'm on the water, there are two things I'm always reminded of that people have worshipped, that when I experience them, I'm very quick to understand why they worshipped them. And water is one of them. I get why worshiping the Mediterranean made sense in the days of the Philistines. I get it. There is something profound there. At night, I get why people worshiped the moon and the stars. Okay. I'm not saying I don't encourage it, but I get it.
Yeah.
I I think for me just it was a lot of really bringing my attention back to the present and saying and not trying to overthink it. Just I'm here, God, I know you're here, and all of this other stuff is here. And there is no other moment I can encounter you except the one I'm in. So let's just all try to be in this moment together.
Yeah. Okay. So I was totally there, like just trying to encounter God in the moment. But I wanted a little bit more idyllic than I got. You want kind of these like mountaintop experiences with God. You went away in the woods and you just really felt connected with God or whatever. It's not that I felt disconnected with God. And I did have beautiful moments. There were times when the rain would clear and the mist would like ascend from the water and it looked so cool. Um, or there were times where the sun breaks through the clouds, like reflected really cool off the water. And, you could hear fish jumping around and bird calls in the trees and whatnot. All of these things that people point to as idyllic. But what was the bulk of my experience? Most of the fish that jumped were tiny little fish that you wouldn't even been able to keep if you like caught them. They were tiny little bloop. And you're like, oh, okay, that was lame. Or what's the bird that kept soaring over my head? A crow. Just a freaking crow. That's what I got to look at. Most of the time I wasn't in the sunshine. I was in the rain, and it was like pouring down rain. And so I'm getting soaked. I mean, it was kind of cool to look around the lake and see, like, be kind of in the lake while it's raining and see all the water drops popping off all around you. It was kind of cool, but also like you're over it pretty quick. And I kept hoping that if I was still enough, like a deer would come to drink. The only time I saw a deer was at the very end of my trip, and I'm going and enjoying the vistas, and I decide to walk out on the grass toward the edge of one vista, and I spooked a deer and it ran away from me. I had no idea it was there until it started running away. That was it. I got like 2 seconds of a glimpse of a deer. I'm going, not that any of this like ruined the experience, but also I hope it ruins the illusion of some experience of grandeur.
It's funny. I resonate with you because I have had similar experiences, but man, I don't know that I would call it a mountaintop experience, but a beautiful experience that I had. Like I said, blue sky, white clouds. There was one moment I was 10 feet from a heron that like decided that was the moment to spread its wings and like fly right over my head after I'd like watched it for 2 minutes. I mean,
You're rubbing in the fact that all I got was a crow.
the heron is pretty cool. It lives there though, so I don't know that this makes it better, but if you go kayaking on this lake, you're gonna probably see the heron. So I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
but I've also had, I know I'm killing it over here, um but I have also had those moments. Like I said, I mean that weekend where it was cold and muddy, and did I mention it was cold? Um
Yeah. It kind of came up.
yeah, but I don't know. So what, I guess, what do you do with that? Like now that it's over, what do you do with kind of the, I don't know, is disappointing the right word, or disillusioning experience?
I think I was actually fairly successful in not creating expectations around this time. And I knew in advance what the weather was going to be like and what my experience was probably going to be like as a result. So I just embraced it for what it was. I wouldn't say, therefore, I just loved every second of it, but neither was my day ruined. Um, it was, it was a little bit on the positive side of neutral. And what do you do with that? I'm just grateful that I had the day. I'm grateful that I got to spend that time alone. I'm grateful that I got some time to reflect with God. I'm grateful that I got to have some undivided time to pray for some of the people and situations that I care about. I'm grateful for the inspiration toward my sermon. I'm grateful for the time. I'm grateful for the memories. I'm grateful for the sights that I did see. Like, it's totally, totally fine because I didn't need any one thing out of this trip. I didn't have any weighted expectations on this. I knew we were probably going to talk about it on the podcast, but I'm okay with talking about it being a neutral, maybe slightly positive experience. Just because that's reality. That's life. That's like, I don't want to paint a picture of walking with God in these grandiose terms that make it sound like it's just going to be, well, your experience every time.
Yeah, man, I can't say that I have had that experience every time. And I think it's funny that you had that kind of experience because a lot of my experience, I really had it in the last major effort I made at this was the cold one that didn't go well that I keep bringing up. And I think that really set me up to be mindful of the fact that one of the images that has come to mind a lot lately is the image in John 3 of the Holy Spirit as wind, where Jesus says, "You can't see the wind, but you can see what it's doing." And I think we can't always see the ways in which the Spirit is shaping us in the midst of these moments. And so our job is really just to present ourselves to the moment, open to whatever the Spirit wants to do, and say, okay, I'm here. It's here. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think our society tends to emphasize the big takeaway, right? And we were
Hmm.
kind of already going here with our podcast. Like, what was the before, the big, in the middle, and the after? What did you take away from this? And I think we always want to know, well, what did you take away from it? And if you say nothing, well, then you wasted your time. You must have an outcome that you can point to. And I like what you're saying about how we never know how these moments will be used by God to shape us, right? Full stop. Like whether in the moment or in a continual way, or maybe this just builds a habit that says, yep, it's worth it, period. I don't know. I don't know how to quantify what the takeaway is, if there is one, and whether or not that's an okay thing. I'm grateful for the time. And I think that's just where I have to leave it and just trust that that's enough. I'm just grateful that I got to get away.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's exactly where I would land as well is I'm grateful for the time. And I look forward to more of it, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do something a little different here. I want to invite you to turn to the audience. And I would love to just ask you, what would be your encouragement to anyone listening about taking a personal retreat, even if for just a few hours?
Yeah. You know, no one regrets making space in their life, but I think we often regret not making space in our lives.
Mm, that's so good. Yes.
Like, I think that's my invitation is make some space. And the job that I'm in right now, we come back to this kind of Eastern phrase, beginner's mind, which is a way of saying we're going to walk into the conversation knowing that we're not experts. And so we have the expectation of ourselves and the situation that we are going to be beginners in it. And I think that for me, this is another situation in which I need to cultivate a beginner's mind. And I go in with a beginner's expectation that some things will be foreign and weird, and I'm going to be kind of thrashing about to try to experience this, but it'll be fine. And it's good. And it's that's great. It's all good. What
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah.
What are what are your thoughts
I
in that regard?
I love your advice that nobody ever regrets creating space, but we often regret not making space. And when I think about it like that, I often use the phrase white space, right? Just something
Mm,
blank in my calendar that is just white. There's nothing there. If I think about this as creating white space, well then I don't have a deliverable that I have to bring back from white space. It's white space. It's empty. It's creating time. It's creating a buffer around all my other to-dos and my other pressures and my other needs and all of that to just say, I'm not doing that right now. I'm creating space where nothing exists except
mm,
me and space. And honestly, if and me and space and God, right?
mhm.
But I love the idea of just creating space. That is worth it in and of itself.
100%. Yep. I'm just going to go with yup to what you just said.
Well, because you already said it and I just reset it. So to say it again,
I guess that's true.
Would be
you said it better, though.
Redundant. I know. Okay. Well, this has been super fun. It was nice to reflect on the time. But yeah, I want to have another conversation again next week. How about that?
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait.
Okay, let's do it. I'll talk to you then.
All right. I'll talk to you then.
Bye.
Bye.